And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. 60 years have passed since the day known as Bloody Sunday. Friday marked the anniversary of the 1965 march when black activists attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge to Montgomery, protesting voting restrictions in Alabama. They were met with violence from police trying to stop the march. The attack sparked national outrage and helped push forward Voting Rights Act of 1965. Joining us to talk about it, CEO of Regal Media, journalist Todd Smith, along with pastor and journalist Dr. Ruth Olison. So, looking at that struggle back in 1964-65, and many people are saying we got some struggles today, especially with the disappearance of DEI, affirmative action. Your thoughts and reflecting back then and now, Dr. Ruth.
History is repeating itself, and I'm probably the only person in this whole studio who was alive back then. I don't remember that as a little girl, but I still was alive. So I'm so honored by the bravery of the people who went across that bridge, who paid the price for us to vote, and who took on those terrible men and those dogs. And I'm just so grateful to them. And what I believe is going to happen now, because we are engaged in an overall period of voter suppression, and I believe that votes of many people, black people, white people, brown people, have been suppressed. And we are seeing what could ultimately happen again.
And Todd, a good point that Dr. Ruth makes is what they went through back then. Yeah. Brutality, dogs, fire hoses, compared to people now who are afraid of the word or social media posts, and so they remain silent.
If they could go through that, we can handle anything. I know it's scary, especially for my generation. Like Dr. Ruth said, nobody else was alive. I don't understand what that feels like, but my mother would tell me, oh, that's nothing. Look what we went through. And those stories, people think it's so far away. I always remember my mom would tell me, your great aunt called your grandmother and said, Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. My grandmother was 55 years old before she could vote. That's something that's powerful. And now we have people eroding it, not just DEI. They're taking away, like one provision of the Voting Rights Act made voting districts who had a history of discrimination, they had to get approval from the federal government to redraw district lines. The Supreme Court struck that down. So it's all about suppressing our power by suppressing that vote. And a lot of people don't know Selma was 50% African American at that time, but only 2% had managed to register the vote. Once that changed, you saw a lot more black people get office. You saw a lot more moderate and liberal white people get into office. It just changed the power structure. And in the South, you had predominantly black towns with all white city councils. So that's what it's about nowadays. It's about maintaining a power structure that puts brown and black people at the bottom. And we have to always be mindful of that, and we have to fight. We have to fight in a different way, but we have to know that the struggle is never over. We can't go backwards. We can't let what my grandmother went through go in vain.
In a world of TikTok and Instagram, how do you make younger people realize the importance of this life lesson and this history that we've already been through?
Well, I think it's a real opportunity to communicate that, to use these formats, these platforms, to communicate these important messages. So it's not just entertainment, it's not just twerking and all that kind of stuff. Now it's time to get real, because these folks are going to need jobs, they're going to need careers, they're going to need access to economics, to power, to education. So it's really time for us to get serious about how to effectively use this wonderful social media that we have. I think our young people are really smart. I work near Texas Southern University, and it just does my heart so well, and near Yates High School, to see that our kids are studying. They want to go to the next level. But now, going to college, as we all did, and then not having a promise of being able to participate in the economy, that is going to be very frustrating. And so I think that now they have to look at what's next, because there's this terrible degradation of our freedom to try to put a cap on us being at the table. They must have the opportunity to be at the table.
All right. We want to thank you both for joining us this important history lesson here on The Factor Uncensored.